Mason Miller on.
Swing and a miss.
Miller delivers. Swung on and missed. And Miller is fired up.
103. It's unfair.
Mason Miller is with us.
Mason, great to have you on, man.
A's are on the rise.
Swing and a miss.
Pure octane from Mason Miller.
This guy rules. The Oakland A's being decent is one of the most shocking developments in baseball this season. If you've ever watched the movie Major League, this team is just like those Indians. Team owner John Fisher gutted the roster while keeping ticket prices high. Attendance numbers have plummeted, so now he has an excuse to move the team to Vegas. The goal of this team from top down was to be bad.
Here's a list of the players we'll be inviting to camp.
This guy here is dead.
Cross him off then.
There's only one problem. The clubhouse hasn't gotten the memo, especially in their bullpen. The A's bullpen currently sits in the top half of MLB in ERA, FIP, strikeouts minus walk percentage, and win probability added. They finished bottom 3 in all 4 of those categories last year, and it's truly an island of misfit toys. Kyle Mueller went from the worst starter in MLB last year to a solid multi-inning reliever. They picked Mitch Spence in the Rule 5 draft from the Yankees, and he's been excellent so far. Lucas Erceg spent 6 years playing third base in the minors before ever pitching professionally, and now he's a great setup man. But the biggest key to their success, their most intriguing story, and the reason you're here right now is their closer, Mason Miller. Just a few weeks ago, there's a good chance you'd never heard of Miller, or you saw his name in a box score or a pitching ninja highlight, but never really thought much of it. Sticking with the Major League analogy, he's their wild thing. From the extreme velo to the question of where the hell did this guy come from?
What the hell league you been playing in?
California Penal.
This video is about finding out where Miller came from, and trust me, it's also something straight out of Hollywood. Coming out of Bethel Park High School in Pennsylvania, Mason Miller was a tall but extremely thin righty with no D1 offers. His fastball sat in the high 80s, but he tired unusually quickly on the mound. He was a great high school pitcher, but now that was over, and he was presented with a choice: go be a normal student or grind to keep the dream alive. He chose to go to the local Waynesburg University and play Division III ball. There is no glamour in playing baseball for the Waynesburg Yellow Jackets. D3 schools don't give athletic scholarships. The number of students at the entire university hardly fill a section of the crowd at a big SEC rivalry game. The university's baseball field has fewer bleachers than most Little League fields. Home games are played here, where a weird 335-foot left center field exists because there wasn't enough space between the highway and the creek to fit a regular-sized outfield. Road games are played at other Pennsylvania or West Virginia D3 schools, typically a couple of hours away by bus. This type of life is truly a grind. Sacrificing the typical college experience for 4 years of this requires purely intrinsic motivations. If you're playing for Waynesburg, you live and die with baseball in your veins. Mason Miller is that kid, but his freshman year didn't go his way. It may be D3, but facing college talent at any level is a brand new ballgame compared to facing kids at a small northeastern high school. Miller's sophomore year was nearly identical, another season with an ERA over 7, and despite bulking up to 180 pounds before the start of the season, he fell all the way back down to 155 after. Strict diet and workout regimens didn't work. The summer entering his junior year, Miller was going to intern at AHN Jefferson Hospital in Pittsburgh. Before his first day, he submitted a urine sample for the required drug test. Lab testers told him his sample was diluted, and in most cases, a sample like that meant that someone was trying to cheat the test. Miller insisted that it was legitimate, and when the lab coordinator further tested the sample, they were shocked. Normal blood sugar levels sit between 70 and 100 milligrams per deciliter. Miller's was 700. Just like that, a routine drug test turned into an emergency room visit, which turned into a type 1 diabetes diagnosis. It was initially terrifying, but he quickly discovered that one of the scariest days of his life was the best for both his health and his career. Regulating his insulin allowed him to put on and keep muscle extremely efficiently. Miller knew all the steps to building muscle, eating right, and throwing hard. It's like if Sisyphus got to walk up the hill without pushing the boulder. Everything just got a whole lot easier. He broke out during his junior season, starting 11 games, dialing up his fastball into the mid-90s, throwing 4 shutouts, and keeping his ERA under 2. And the gains didn't stop there. At the start of his senior season, Miller weighed nearly 50 pounds more than when he was diagnosed, and his fastball was as hot as ever, but he only got to make 2 starts before COVID killed his senior season. Thankfully for Miller, the NCAA decided to grant athletes with an extra year of eligibility. It was unlikely that he would have found a team in the 2020 draft, being that it was only 5 rounds long. Yet another point where his career very easily could have ended. As a grad transfer, Miller joined the Division I Gardner-Webb University Bulldogs, and he dominated, throwing 92 2/3 innings, maintaining a .330 ERA, and finishing each of his final 5 starts with double-digit strikeouts. His excellent 5th year earned him an invite to MLB's inaugural draft combine. In North Carolina, Miller caught the eyes of scouts league-wide, sitting in the high 90s on the radar gun. He threw 7 fastballs at the event, and they were 7 of the 8 fastest pitches clocked. His fastball and slider also possessed the highest average spin rates of their respective pitch categories. Just 3 years earlier, he was hardly scraping the low 90s. Now, on a good day, he could touch triple digits. His impressive stuff as a potential starter coaxed the A's into picking him in the 3rd round of the 2021 draft. Most lanky pitchers who can throw like this are drafted out of high school, then choose between signing and going to a D1 college. Going from D3 to an early round draft pick in just over a year doesn't happen every day. Everyone knows Steven Strasburg's story. As an out-of-shape high schooler, he went undrafted. Then he hardly cracked SDSU's roster as a freshman. By his sophomore season, he went from throwing in the low 90s to touching 100. Then he went 1st overall in the draft after his junior season. Or Jacob deGrom, who went undrafted out of high school, played 2 college seasons as a shortstop, then got drafted after converting to the mound. Strasburg buckled down, improved his work ethic and maturity, and got into shape. deGrom resisted becoming a full-time pitcher, but when he did, he almost immediately got MLB looks. A rapid transcendence like Miller's isn't totally unprecedented, but he needed so many random events to go his way to succeed. Had Miller's diabetes diagnosis came even a few months later, it might have been too late for him. If COVID didn't give him an extra year to prove himself, he might be working in finance for the Allegheny Health Network right now. But now that things finally rolled his way, he was gonna make the most out of his opportunity. Miller threw 6 innings in rookie ball after the draft, striking out 9 and only allowing a run. That offseason, he continued getting stronger and refining his delivery, getting to the point where his fastball touched 100 with some consistency. Then, he threw just 6 minor league games in 2022. A shoulder strain limited him to just 14 innings, but he struck out 25 of the 50 batters he faced. He also had a strong showing in that season's Arizona Fall League. Regardless of the injury road bumps, it was clear to anyone watching that Miller possessed an unteachable ceiling in terms of stuff. A's manager Mark Kotsay even wanted him to get a major league look in September of that year. The organization knew they had something special. If you're enjoying the video so far, please subscribe. Over 90% of you are unsubscribed. It's free and it helps me out a ton. Thanks. Miller began 2023 at AA, struck out 8 of 13 batters in his first start, and immediately got promoted to AAA. In his first start in the notoriously hitter-friendly Pacific Coast League, he only allowed a single base runner in 5 innings, on a strikeout wild pitch. He struck out 11 of 16 batters, and that was all the A's needed to see. 5 days later, and after fewer than 30 professional innings, Mason Miller made his MLB debut. Before his diabetes diagnosis, Pro Bowl never even entered his mind. Before COVID gave him an extra year of college, he probably wasn't gonna get drafted. In just 5 years and a few dozen starts, he went from struggling D3 pitcher to D1 ace to MLB starter. In the second inning of his first start against the Cubs, Miller struck out the side, touching 102 on the gun on the last pitch of the inning. He struck out Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani back-to-back during his second start. Then he dominated for 7 no-hit innings against the Mariners. His fourth start came against the Royals, and he threw 6 more excellent innings. The A's were in the midst of a historically bad season, so his emergence wasn't covered too much nationally, but I can't remember the A's ever having a starter this exciting. Naturally, A's fans aren't allowed to have nice things, so that start against the Royals was his last full start of the season. He suffered a minor UCL sprain, which held him out for most of the year. When he returned in September, it was out of the bullpen. He actually did make 2 more starts, but that was in an opener role, totaling just 3 innings in those games. Miller prepared for 2024 as a reliever in an effort to mitigate injury. Even though he was touching 102 miles per mph as a starter, he's become even more dominant this year. I think he would've and still could make an excellent starter in MLB, but based on how good he's been in relief, it's unlikely that he's moved out of his current role. As of right now, I think he's easily the best reliever in the game. There isn't even much to break down when it comes to Miller. He throws one of the best fastballs in MLB, averaging 101 miles per hour and over 17 inches of induced vertical break. Miller's fastball is in the prime Aroldis Chapman tier. Johan Duran might be the only other guy in that tier at all. Miller doesn't just touch triple digits, he lives in triple digits. Over a quarter of his pitches this year have been at or over 101 miles per hour. He's thrown over 40% of the league's pitches at or over 101, and he's thrown more than half the pitches over 102. And that's just the first 6 weeks of the season. I can't even imagine what he'll be reaching on a warm summer night. I think there's a non-zero chance that Chapman's pitch speed record is threatened by Miller as soon as this summer. That's how dominant his fastball is. He also throws his slider just over 40% of the time, and it's absolutely filthy. When he's locating it low and away to righties and low and into lefties, it's almost untouchable. He actually throws the slider over half the time to righties, but the threat of the fastball makes it so hard to sit on that pitch. The near 15 mile per hour difference in the pitches, and the fact that his fastball is so fast, means that batters pretty much need to guess what pitch is coming to hit it. And even when they do guess right, sometimes it's just located too well, or thrown too hard. Batters whiff about half the time they swing at either pitch. Since allowing 2 runs in his first game of the season, Miller's made 13 appearances without allowing a run. He's allowed just 1 hit and 2 walks while striking out 30 batters in his last 11 games. I don't think I've properly conveyed this. Miller has faced 43 batters in that span. Only 11 have even put the ball in play, and only 1 has gotten a hit. Batters are 1 for 41 with 2 walks. He has struck out 70% of batters in this span, 10 strikeouts for every batter to reach base. Miller's FIP in that span is negative .092, not .092, negative .092. I cannot overstate just how dominant he's been, and I'm not sure there's ever been a relief stretch this dominant. Miller's on pace for about 5 FWAR this season, which would be one of the best seasons by a reliever ever. The only other reliever to reach that threshold was Bruce Sutter in 1977, and it took him over 100 innings, striking out Corey Seager, Juan Soto, and Aaron Judge with 103 mile-per-hour fastballs put the world on notice. He won AL Reliever of the Month in April, and he's getting unprecedented national media coverage. Everyone wants an interview with an Oakland Athletics reliever. Mason Miller's story could have ended about a half dozen times by now, but against all odds, we're watching the emergence of the new best closer in baseball in Oakland. I'm not expecting the A's to play 500 ball the rest of the year, nor am I expecting them to hold on to Miller forever if they can get a good return on the trade market. All I know is that the A's have been miserable to watch for about a half decade now. With how badly they've ripped off their fans, it must be tough for them to get invested in anything related to this team. Mason Miller is the exception to that rule. He's energized the entire roster. Miller's dominance is unlike anything I've ever seen from a reliever. Every single time he comes into pitch, I tune in. I am flipping to the Oakland Athletics game to watch this dude. Nobody else has that type of motion. All I'm hoping for is Miller to stay healthy and dominate all year long, and maybe he actually keeps the A's in a wildcard race. But even if they're 20 games back in September, I'll still be tuning in every time Mark Kotsay calls on Big 19 out of the pen.